Guess we're gonna go ahead and get started. So,
Yeah, we're gonna get started.
welcome everyone to the third annual statewide ALC meeting for 2021. I'm Daniel.
Daniel, you're muted.
You're muted, yeah.
Whoops, sorry. Sorry, you think I'd know the Zoom thing by now. Let's rewind. We appreciate you taking the time to learn about the new Special Olympics Illinois forms for athlete eligibility. For more information regarding the new forms can be found at soill.org/athlete-forms. And if one of our Karen or Dan or somebody wants to put it in the chat for everybody. And a reminder, you can find the recording of tonight's meeting on the e-resources page on soill.org. So if you also want to put that link in the chat. You put this, oh, yeah.
Your participating is very valuable to the programs. We will have these be bi-monthly every other month, and hopefully at the regional level.
I'm Daniel, one of the co-chairs of our Athlete Leadership Council.
I'm Eric, one of the other co-chairs of the Athlete Leadership Council.
If you all can mute yourself during Dan's presentation, and you can unmute yourself. Hopefully you all know. Apparently I didn't know how to do that. You can unmute yourself with questions. Dan will call on you with questions during tonight's presentation.
And now I'd like to introduce the remaining Athlete Leadership Executive Team members who will give us a lay. Lisa, the secretary.
Hello.
Jose. Wave your hand. Yeah, wave your hand, Jose. And Kaylee, wave your hand.
Hi.
And now, Dan Connolly has been with Special Olympics Illinois since 2001 and has served in many roles from manager of program operations in Chicago, Area 18 Director, Director Technology and Online Resources, to his current position of Senior Director Strategic Planning Partner. Please put your hands together as we welcome Dan to this month's Athlete Leadership Council statewide meeting.
Well, I certainly didn't expect fanfare, but that's awesome. That's the best Zoom call I've had yet. Well, thank you, Daniel and Eric and the rest of the council for inviting me to come to talk through all the new paperwork that is out there to make sure that our athletes are safe and that we have good information on everybody. We had to make some updates. So I'm going to share my screen here in just a second, make sure that everybody can, in fact, see the presentation. Nope, probably not. Give me 1 second.
Yep, we can see it. Oh.
I can see it now.
Is that better? You can see the full screen?
Yep.
Awesome. So like you all remember, we've had a MedApp form that you would take to the doctor when you got your sports physical. Your doctor would fill that out. You would turn that into your coach. Your coach would send that into us. And then that form would be good for 2 years. One of the things that we did last year during the pandemic is we expanded that to make that good for 3 years, to give everyone a little bit more time, since many of us could not get to a physician at the beginning of the pandemic, for a sports physical certainly. We want to make sure that everyone had the time that they needed to get to their doctor, and it also allowed us to become a little bit more in line with Special Olympics International timeframe. So part of that process, since we had made that change, we were going to have to release a new form. It was a legal change, so it forced us to put together a whole new form. So we decided to take a good look at what our Med app had on it, and if we needed to make any changes, we were going to make them all at once, just to make it a little bit easier. So lots of discussion started at that point. And what we ended up with, which I hope everyone will see the benefits of, is that we have now a new consent form and a new medical form. So what we did is we took that one-page Med app and we split that now into two separate forms. So the consent form will be the first one we'll talk about, and then the medical form, which is what you would take to your physician or your doctor. We'll talk about that in a second. So the new consent form is something that contains the information that previously existed on the Med app. It's all of your name, your address, your contact information, some general demographic information, emergency contact, and then your parent guardian, if you are not your own parent guardian. Information is all on that consent form. This form is one and done. So you will only need to fill this out once. And then unless something changes, maybe guardianship changes, you become your own guardian, then you would submit a new one. Or if for some reason any of your guardian's information changed, then you would submit a new on that at that point. But for the most part, you're only ever going to have to do this consent form once. The new medical form, this form will be valid, like I said, for 3 years, and that goes 3 years from the time the doctor signs it. So the doctor will sign and date it, and then we base that 3 years off of that signature date for the doctor. Though it's not required to do it every year, we do still encourage you when you are going to your annual physical to take the Med app along, just like you could before, and have the doctor update it and sign it. It'll keep you current. You won't ever have to worry about expiration dates if you do that. And then you don't have to make a special appointment just to get this sports physical done. But again, it's good for 3 years, so you only have to do it every 3 years. Something that's different is on the medical form, the parent guardian signature is not on that form. It's only the physician. So if you are in a scenario where maybe your parent or guardian that would typically sign the form doesn't live with you, they're going to take care of that ahead of time. And then if you're living maybe in a group home, and you have someone there at the group home that helps coordinate your doctor visit, they'll help you fill out that form and you'll take it. You don't have to have forms sent back and forth if the parent guardian is not right there. And as I go through, feel free, just want to remind everybody, feel free to throw questions in the chat, or if you want to find it easier, just go ahead and unmute yourself and interrupt me. I would rather answer your question as you have it, just to make sure I cover everybody's questions. So feel free to interrupt me if you need. Some of the benefits with the new medical form, like I hinted to a little earlier, this gets us closest to Special Olympics Inc.'s requirements. It's the same physical form that they use. We adjusted some of the medical history for information that we don't necessarily need or will use, but it gets us better in line with what they're doing. It's also will make it a little easier for those athletes that do have the opportunity to go to a USA Games or a World Games or an invitational type meet, we'll have a very similar form to use for that. It also aligns us with current medical practices. Our old form was just a little outdated. I don't know if you remember or affected you in any way, but our old form only asked if the athlete had Down syndrome, and then if that was yes, it asked about an X-ray for atlantoaxial instability, which is a condition between two of your vertebrae in your spine. That practice is a little outdated. So what it's been updated to is there anything that would potentially cause any compression of the spine? So, you know, if an athlete, this is probably not the right terminology, but you did a headbutt with a soccer ball, is that going to cause you any potential problems in your neck? Things like that. It's expanded a little bit broader. So our new form allows for that and is set up for that. But really, most importantly for us is that the information that we're going to get on that form is going to be way better if there's an emergency and you're at one of our events. We want to make sure that we can provide the best first aid care we can. And so this information coming in on this form is going to help us do that. And lastly, there are some new questions on there. We are now asking about race and ethnicity of our athletes. We want to know how diverse or how not diverse we are. So we want to know that we're serving all of our communities. So there's some new information, some new questions about that. So that way we can know if there are certain groups that maybe are underrepresented, we can make sure that we're reaching out and have a strong effort for outreach in those communities. So the eligibility process. So to become an athlete, you need to, before you would just fill out the new Med app and you would turn that into your coach, and your coach would send that into Special Olympics. What happens now is if you're a brand new athlete, so if you meet someone and you're talking to them and they're really interested in getting involved with Special Olympics, what they're going to need to do is they're going to need to submit that consent form. So their parent, guardian, or themselves, they'll fill out that consent form, and then they'll go to their doctor and they'll fill out that medical form. So it's two different forms that they'll send in that then once they're processed and they're on file, they're good to start training and start competing at our events. For all of our renewing athletes, all of you guys, all you're going to do, you're going to need to do that consent form, and you'll need to do that soon because you'll want to do that prior to coming to any of our events. So as we start to open up and you're starting to practice, I heard that gymnastics practice is starting. That's very exciting, Colleen. You know, when it gets, hopefully you'll come to an event prior to gymnastics season in the spring. But if not, you know, as those qualifiers start to come around, you'll get notification to make sure that you have that consent form on file before you come to that event.
And Dan, before you continue, Amy Foster has a question.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Go ahead, Amy.
so I want to make sure I understand this right and correct. I not only have to do it for myself, I end up assisting like 5 other athletes. So please forgive me for all the questions I'm about to ask.
No,
So
go ahead.
We're all returning athletes. So
Okay.
once we submit that first form, we never have to touch it again.
Correct.
Because I was told something very differently by my Karen. You can fuss at him from my lead team person, and you know who that is. Okay. Secondly, okay, so I always thought, for me, maybe this is just part of the change that's going on in Special Olympics. I always thought it had to be done through MedFast. So we can take those forms to our doctor? Because that would
Yeah.
be so much more easier and cool for me. Okay.
Yep.
How complicated are they? Because I've heard, again, Karen, feel free to fuss at him. Just don't tell you what I've said him. I've just heard they're a nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, I know I signed all the list of like, okay, we'll stay 2 feet away. We won't come to anything if we're sick. I signed that paper, but it's like, I'm like, the amount of reading that's on some of these papers is my only concern as a whole.
Mhm.
I understand it because my reading level is high, but when I think of my athlete friends, I'm gonna have to water that down in more simpler terms to get them to say, okay, I understand what I'm signing, you know, and they're smart people. So that's all. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, Amy, I won't lie. The medical form is much longer than it used to be. So it's, I wouldn't say it's a nightmare on Elm Street, because I love that movie. But it is longer, and I will show it here. We'll get to that part where I'll show the actual form, and you can see what's all involved.
Dan, can I interject real quick?
Yeah.
Just wanted to point out too, as athlete leaders, the purpose of us doing this tonight is so that you can help share this information and educate your peers and your teammates and other families about the importance of this form. And it'll really help if you're able to explain it to them. So that's why Dan's really, going through everything very clearly, and you're able to ask questions. So as complicated as it might be for you, the idea is that you're able to explain this to others and help Special Olympics Illinois really promote the purpose of these forms and the need for our athletes to stay eligible to complete the proper forms.
And Amanda, you have a question. Was there a question from Amanda?
I didn't really hear Amanda yet.
Amanda, are you? I think you're on mute.
Okay, now I'm unmuted.
Oh, there you
So
go.
my question for you guys is that how would you know extensive like the form? Because my doctor like told me it was like he didn't really get it.
No.
So
Can I jump in?
Go ahead.
Is it okay if I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so this is Amanda's mom. So no, it's not that he said it was he couldn't understand it. What he said, it was much more comprehensive than what has been done in the past. And what I'm understanding on the Zoom, that is true. However, he did agree, of course, because of certain populations that have maybe more medical considerations, like say the Down syndrome that you talked about earlier. Those are things that they're just trying to do to make sure that they've got everything covered for all of the athletes, because there are so many different things that have to be covered. There was in no way, shape, or form was he upset about it. He said, boy, it's really a much longer form than it normally is. So that's what he meant, Amanda. And
yeah,
so we did experience that today. So
we did.
Yeah, there's some good information in there and good reasons, I think, that all this information is out there.
And it's good to understand it too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I know, yeah, it is definitely longer. There's no lie. And it's much more comprehensive.
Yeah.
But it will definitely, that our previous form was very much just a permission slip. And it was a very basic screening, where this has really evolved into more of a health physical. And it's helping us align too with our Healthy Athlete initiative, and our health programming is helping us, reinforce a little bit more of a comprehensive exam and form.
Oh, so the question I would have, just having experienced this today, and I'm sure there will be an additional charge, which we're happy to do, of course, because we want the athletes safe. But my question would be when in the past, when there have been these clinics like through the SRAs, I'm assuming that those will not happen now because they do need to be more extensive physicals of sorts.
The MedFest event will still happen. What we're doing internally is we're looking at how we have those events set up so that we can do the new form.
Okay.
Because the majority of the information on that form is health history. So that information would come, you know, they would go to that MedFest with that information to provide to that physician. But what we're looking at now is just, it'll slow down some of those screenings. It will definitely affect the one that we do in Chicago. And we've got a team working on how we adjust that event to accommodate more time to allow the MedFest physician to fill out the new form. But those will certainly continue. They just might look a little bit different.
Gotcha. Okay. Good.
Okay,
Good
thank
information.
you so much.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
I've
And
got,
then Maria has a question.
Yes, Maria.
When are the forms that due exactly?
So the new consent form will be due before you come back to your first in-person event.
Okay.
So that's the first thing to worry about, getting that one done. The new medical form won't be due until your current form expires. So you don't need to rush out and get a new sports physical if you just did that. And I'll show you here, towards the end here, I'll show you where you can go to check to see what that expiration date is of your current form on file. So that one is still good until it expires, and then to renew, you would do the new form.
Hey, Dan.
Did that make sense, Maria? Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And
Okay.
are we gonna get them through email?
You can. They're all available right now on our website as well. And I'll walk, when I show you the forms, I'll show you how to get there to them.
Okay.
Hey, Dan.
Tim has a question, so.
Yes.
You don't have any questions.
I got certified as a health messenger, so maybe I could explain what it is. The medical app would be that you have to send the medical app to the athletes on different homes or group homes, and because I think they need like for Down syndrome and cerebral palsy and autism, and because I think they need that I think they need some new med forms. I think you should email or send it out on mail or something.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that'd be a good idea for that. So that'd be that more. If you have the medical app, and you have to send it in to your doctor, and your doctor will find to what they say, and you will and then after you get done, you will compete again.
And Ben, we sent out all of the SOADs, and all the head coaches already received all this information.
Yeah.
So they have all the new forms, they have all the new links. We're also starting a new thing. It had a little bug the first time it went out, but we are now able to send an automated email directly to you that will remind you in 6 months, 3 months, then I think again at a month, and then 2 weeks and a week prior to your current med app expiring to remind you. Okay. So you'll get lots of email reminders saying, hey, this is coming up. Don't forget, you want to make your appointment, and in that email has the link to download all the forms that you would need.
Yeah, okay. There's a link for everyone. You need all the link you guys need for all your email. So that's a good idea.
Yep. Thanks, Ben.
And
Tim,
Dan,
you had a question.
Yeah, Tim had a question, Dan.
My question is this: why do we have two different kind of form on a separate paper. We'll make it a little bit better. We do it all together in one form together on a two paper instead of separate paper, like one on the consent form and medical form together instead of do all separate. So
Well,
what? Go ahead.
Tim, the reason they became separate forms is we only need the consent form once. So you only need to fill that part out once. So rather than having to fill that out every 3 years with, like you will, the medical form, if we kept that all together as one, you would have to fill out the entire thing every 3 years. And we have a lot of athletes that their parent guardian doesn't live with them, or maybe the Office of State Guardianship is their guardian. So it's going to help those athletes that maybe their guardian isn't in the same household as they are. So they only have to fill that out once. And then the Med app, they would fill out.
Okay.
Did that make sense, Tim?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dan, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Well, two quick questions. One is, so for the email, is it going to be you just said the email reminders when our Med app expires 6 months, 2 weeks, a week before, sent to both us and a parent or guardian, or is it just us?
Right now, it's going to, let me think. It is either it's going to the parent guardian contact email address if we have one. If we don't have one of those, it's going to the athlete email address. In most cases, we only have one or the other.
Okay.
So it's looking at both of those and picking those.
Okay.
So it's going to take us a little while to get that system cleaned up to get really good email information for everybody.
Okay.
But yeah, it should be going out to both those emails.
All right. And is that also going to be on the foam as well to better?
Yep.
Have that to.
And actually, the new form, it lays it out better so that we will know if the email address is the athlete's email address or the parent guardian's email address. Okay. We'll actually ask for both of those.
All right.
So it'll help us. Yep.
Then the other question before I let you move on, as you see, I'm filling out the forms this week now. In filling out the code of conduct form, where it asks if you're an athlete, unified partner, family, staff. Mm-hmm. Do family members also have to fill out the same form? It's like even if whether a family member is competing or maybe a family member is coming to watch our competitions.
Yes,
do they
do,
still have to fill it out?
That's a little bit of a different, that COVID-19 code of conduct is a little different form. It's a whole separate thing. If I can, if we can come back to that at the end.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to confuse the issue.
Okay.
But I'll definitely talk about that. Remind me if I forget about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me pick up and we'll go a little further. And again, if you have questions as we're starting to go through, let me know, interrupt me. Lisa, it's been great having you watch that because I only can see, I think, 6 boxes at a time. So just to reiterate one more time, our new athletes will submit the new consent form and then the new medical form. So they'll do both of those. Our renewing athletes will do the new consent form prior to their first event they come back to. So that's going to be right away. and then the new medical form whenever their current form expires. We talked a lot, some of these are repetitive, but we changed the form a lot to realign with a lot of the medical information that Special Olympics International is asking for, updating medical practices, and also helping with our first aid on site. And Tim asked a specific question. This is great. Why is it being separated into two forms? Again, that's so that the consent form only needs to be submitted once. And as you see the form, it's quite lengthy. There's a lot of language in there. Only having to fill out that form once is a big plus. And that'll make it easier for the medical form than to just deal with that every 3 years. The medical form is good for 3 years from that exam signature. And this is a common question, when are the athletes required to start using the new medical form? We have set August 1st is the date that we will no longer be able to process the old one-page med app. So if you just went to the doctor 2 weeks ago and you have that one-page med app, you can still turn that in. We will still accept that. We'll still be able to process that. And then you would be good for 3 years from that exam date. If we got that one-page med app, oh, wait. Excuse me, I forgot it's August already. It is August 9th already. Wow, in my head, I'm in July. Excuse me. So if you did have that new form and you had that one-page form.
We just had the doctor be Daniel or Dan.
I know, right? My summer months are all messed up. So if you did, let's say if you did just go to the doctor and you had that one-page med app filled out, we would need the new medical form to be filled out. We wouldn't be able to accept that one-page form anymore. Oftentimes, if that happens, when that's happened in the past, when we've had a different form, a lot of times the physicians have been really great to work with to say, here's the new form that we actually need filled out, and they'll just fill it out and use the exam date of when you actually were there. So it doesn't always mean you have to make a new appointment.
Dan,
but that
before
does
we continue.
Yep.
Wendy and had a question, and Marina. They said the slide says that renewing athletes need to fill out the form prior to expiration. Does this mean that if you do it after expiration, you are considered a new athlete?
Oh, good clarification. Thank you. No, that doesn't. That just means your med app expired, and so you're renewing after it expired. New athlete, we're more meaning we don't have any paperwork on. It's the first time they're coming to Special Olympics. So oftentimes, an athlete may have their med app expire and then it's expired for a month. That's fine, because usually that happens because of a scheduling issue of trying to get to the physician and not overlapping, because you can only go once a year sometimes and have Medicaid or Medicare pay for it. So no, if the new med app has expired, you're still in our system. We would just need that new medical form then to renew. Does that make sense, Marina and Wendy? Cool, I see a nodding head. And then Kinsey, did you have a question?
Dan, I think she just was letting us know that her mom was joining, so.
Oh, great. Excellent. So then moving on, our frequently asked questions here. Yeah, do all the athletes submit a new medical form, or is the current med app still valid? Again, it is still valid until that expiration date, and then they would need the new medical form. what's the status of an athlete's current valid MEDAP? We'll actually go there. I will show you, I think I have the link here in this presentation. But when I show you where to go find the new forms, I'll also show you how to look up your current MEDAP. Again, to just remind everybody, the new consent form is good forever unless some kind of change happens in guardianship.
Hey, Dan, I just sent you the new medical form already, so you can have it, so just in case.
Awesome. And Daniel's putting in they've put in the links. Thank you for that athlete form and the athlete lookup tool. So we'll get there and I'll show you that. What happens if all the parts of the new medical form, because when we see it, you'll see there's lots of parts, are not filled out completely. Do I have to send in all 4 pages? I'll show this more specifically when we pull that up. But basically, when it's all the medical history information, we want to know as much information as we possibly can, because again, it helps us respond in an emergency. There are a few sections of the form that obviously the physician's signature is most important with any exam date. There's a 4th page that's a medical referral page, and when we see it, it's a different color too. That is only needed in very specific situations where maybe there needed to be some follow-up. So again, I'll show you that when we get to that part. And then as a side note, I'll show you this form. We haven't talked much about it, but the young athlete registration form has also changed. However, that has remained a single form because the consent is part of their form as well. So let's get in here and let's make sure that you can still see my screen when I go to the browser. We can still see that you're seeing the web browser, right?
Yes, Dan.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So Daniel had put in the chat here, this athlete forms link, but to find it from the home page, if you just go to this sports drop down, and it's that first one for athlete application, will take you right here to this page. This is going to talk about the consent form and your athlete medical form, all the things we talked about today. And it's also going to talk about the new young athletes registration form. At the very bottom, it's going to show some other required paperwork, and we'll talk about this in a second. And this is where Daniel's question about the COVID code of conduct will also come into play down here. But if you notice along the side, the sidebar here has all of the paperwork, all the instructions that you will need right there, the links ready for you to go. What is new and different? We did have a Spanish version of the MEDAP prior. Now we have a Spanish version of the consent form, the new medical form, and we have a young athlete registration form in Spanish as well. So we're really excited we were able to get that translated this time around. So if we look at the athlete consent form, it is teal if it happens to print in color. This is a 2-page document. So it's either printed on front and back, or it's printed as 2 pages and stapled together. This is asking very basic athlete first name, last name, date of birth, region, and then their agency name. This came up in a couple other sessions where an athlete may compete with more than one agency. Then they could just list both of them there. And we will actually put them on file in both of those agencies for their records. And then there's a whole lot of language here to read through. And then as an athlete, if you are your own guardian and able to sign legal documents, then you sign right here. If you are not and you have someone else that signs those documents for you, then they will sign this box below.
And Daniel had a question, Dan, and actually so do I with that. Can we fill those out on our computers as a PDF, and then can we do an electronic signature, or do we have to physically sign them?
You do have to print them and sign them.
Okay.
The consent form, I thought it was. It's not letting me.
Type the
I
answer.
thought these fields were, but the actual signature itself is something that needs to be printed and signed.
Yeah, but all the other fields we can type right in the in the form.
I think so. You're supposed to be able to. Let me see if I downloaded it, if it does that. Yes, it does. So I could, I could type all that information. It just, when it gets to the actual signature line, you would print that, sign it, and then you could scan this and email it in.
Can you use, like, I know on some PDF apps, whether on your phone or iPad or computer, you can like sign with your finger. Can you do that and then insert?
This isn't set up to do that just yet, Daniel.
Okay.
We have to get a couple other systems in place to be able to do that.
Okay.
So we're not there yet.
Okay.
But we're getting there. We're getting there. I'd also encourage anyone to fill this out as much as you can on your computer and then save it. So then in 3 years, well, not the consent form, but the medical form, in 3 years, then you could just open that file, update it, and send it on to the doctor. So you'd have that record. You wouldn't have to print it out every single time and fill it out.
And Dan, Eric has a question.
Go ahead, Eric.
So I filled it out on I haven't sent it in yet because my valid app ain't due next year. But I signed it on my computer, but it's its actual signature. I still had to print it off and sign it, right?
I would, yeah, just to be on the safe side.
Okay.
It's one of those weird things that we have to get figured out on our end on signatures.
And then Dan, a couple of people that I know, a couple of our athletes that couldn't make the call had a question about if they have to, it's not asked on here, but if they need to put on if they've had the COVID vaccine shot or not.
That is not, because we are not requiring the COVID vaccine. And we are not tracking that information because it's not a requirement.
Is the vaccine going to be required in the future? Or?
I know that it's for your company, Daniel.
It's unlikely that would be a requirement. So if we look at the medical form, right away you can see it's very different than before. The first 2 pages are going to be a lot of, our first page here is, again, your primary agency name. And then we actually have a second line here for a secondary agency name. So if you are, with, NWSRA, but then you also do stuff with Hersey High School, you could list both of those. We do ask the name of the person completing the form because a school nurse could be completing this. A caseworker at the group home could be filling this out, and then what that relationship is. It's going to be your athlete information, here, parent guardian information, and then emergency contact. That's kind of our first page. The second page is this is definitely where the comment comes in of much more extensive, is the health history. Again, this is something that hopefully you would have to be able to fill out ahead of time to take to your physician. So so that they have this in advance. But of course, if you're going to your personal physician, they would have all this stuff on file to be able to fill this in.
Dan Garrett has a question.
Go ahead, Garrett.
Hey Dan, I know that you put the secondary a team name because I used to be with the NWSRA, but I am not anymore. I am with a different team now. So you know about what I should do with that.
You would put in your new team then, and it's a CrossFit, right?
What?
Is it the CrossFit?
It is not CrossFit anymore. They relocated to the IFC Rebels.
Okay. So yeah, your agency then is that IFC Rebels. So you would just fill that in, and then yeah, because you would give this over to your head coach there.
Okay.
And Amy has another question.
Go ahead, Amy.
Hey, hi. I live in Region J, which I don't know if you know where that is. It's down near St. Louis.
Yep.
So I know for me that my team has lost their gymnastics coach, and I don't know right now how I'm gonna fall in that second. If I'm going to, if we're gonna cluster in with another team, okay, suggestions, please, because I don't want this form mailed back to me saying you didn't fill this out. I mean, can the form still be shared amongst teams like has been over the years, or am I gonna have to like literally carry a notebook with 50 billion forms to give it to every agency that I do Special Olympics with?
No,
because
it
that's
can be
going to be a nightmare on my street, and then I will be hunting you down. I will find you.
You're gonna come find me, Amy.
Karen already knows I have a car.
You can absolutely share that around with any agencies.
Okay,
Yep.
so I think I'm just gonna like take a copy of it and like have
That would
extra
be
copies because
that'd be a
I'm
very good
I'm
idea.
not gonna deal with that nightmare because that will be my nightmare. Thank you.
Yep. So in the health history section, a lot of this is yes or no questions. This third page here is what the doctor will fill out, this blue, or yeah, it's blue, physical exam page. So the physician's gonna fill this all out as part of their exam. This is the change that I talked about a little bit with the change with Down syndrome and that X-ray. It's now become these two questions here. So they're just gonna say, yeah, there is evidence and maybe there needs to be some follow-up, or we're good to go, there's no spinal cord compression. And then the physician's gonna sign and fill out this section here, giving clearance to participate. In this, and then they're gonna sign, most importantly, put their information and put that exam date. In the event, let's say you do go to a med fest and the physician isn't familiar with you and they hear something maybe, you know, when they're doing the exam that they're not real sure about, they feel like maybe you should have some follow-up care before they would give you permission to participate. Then that physician is going to indicate here, okay, maybe we want them to, I don't know what any of these things are, I'll be honest, but you know, maybe there's some irregular heart rhythm, and so they're suggesting a cardiac exam. They're going to mark that off, and they're going to say, you know, right now I'm going to say no, they can't participate until they have this done. In that rare scenario is when this fourth page, this medical referral form, would need to be filled out. And this is only if, you know, you go to a specialist, they listen to your heart, they say it's, you know, they say everything is good, then that physician would just fill this section out, say, yep, they're good to go, sign it, and we're good. if you've not needed to go to a second doctor for any reason, this page, you just ignore it. You don't even include it. So if you notice, we numbered this page 1 of 1 because this is a little bit of a standalone. But this page with the physical exam is page 3 of 3. So that's a reminder as you're going through these that when you're looking at this form, you need a health history form. You're going to have page 1 and page 2 of that. And then you're going to have this physical exam form. So that'll be 3 pages. Rare scenario, you would have a 4th. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, Daniel, I think this page might be purple. Can't quite tell. We did try and color code them.
Okay.
And then I know we're close on time, not totally close, but I do want to show you really quick the young athlete registration form. It's just a little different. We mirrored some of the same questions. We just were able to, since their form is so much smaller because they don't need to go to a doctor, their consent is able to all be part of this one form, and it's just 2 pages for young athletes.
Dan,
Go ahead.
Cleo has a question of what to put under a primary agency. I don't know if Cleo wants to clarify her question.
So Claire, where do you train? Are you part of?
I'm the independent Wolves with Mr. O'Meara.
Yep, I was gonna guess. So it's like, is it the Wolves? That would be your primary agency.
Okay, because I always wanted to know, whenever I see that question, I never knew what to put under there, so I just left it blank.
Yep, Independent Wolves would be your primary agency. But then let's say maybe you decided to do one thing with NWSRA.
Yeah.
You could put NWSRA as your secondary agency.
Okay,
and then we would make sure you were on file with both of them.
Thank you.
Yep, you're very welcome. And because I promised Daniel I would mention it, there is outside of, so the consent form and the medical form, that's what you need to be eligible. We have a third form right now, that COVID-19 Code of Conduct form. And that's the one that asks you to stay 6 feet away from people. Have you been around anyone that's sick? And it has that code of conduct that you agree when you're at events, here's the things you're gonna do. That is a separate form because we are super hopeful that is gonna go away. We want that to go away when COVID goes away. So that's not part of the medical form and it's not part of the consent form because it will go away. We're gonna say it's gonna go away because it's gonna go away. So that is just a temporary thing that we need to fill out right now before you come to events so that we make sure everyone is really safe during this COVID time. And that is something that you fill out once, we have it on file, and then you're good to go on that. It doesn't expire. But if you have any questions about some of this stuff, like, especially if someone's asking you and they're saying, well, I have this, I don't know if I have this, we put together some paperwork decision trees. So the way this works is if you're talking with an athlete, we can click on the athlete tab and it's going to show us a document here that's got really tiny print, I'm sure, as you're looking on your screen. Let me see if I can zoom in here a little bit. Maybe that'll make it a little easier for you guys to see. And you follow this from top to bottom. So we would say, is the athlete participating in a Special Olympics Illinois activity other than a fundraising participant? So this applies to anything except pretty much if they're going to do plunge, that's not, that's different. If they're going to do bocce, They're going to say, yes, we're going to do bocce. You know, does the athlete have a valid MedApp on file, the old form? No, they don't have that. Do they have the new form on file? No. Okay, then this is what they would need to complete. So they'll fill out those 3 forms, and then they'll contact their region staff and send it off to them. If they do have the old MedApp on file, then they would follow yes, and they would come here and it'd ask the new question, does the athlete have a valid consent? If that's no, then does the athlete have a valid code of conduct on file? No, then here's the 2. But let's say yes, they have that, then all they need is the consent form. So we understand it's very confusing, and it can be very confusing on what you need. So we put this together to help you just kind of ask yourself some questions, and then based on the answer, you should be able to hopefully find where you need to go. On all of these paperwork trees, we have links to the form as well. So if you come here and you go, oh, I only need the consent form and then this COVID code of conduct form, then I can use these links here to actually click on it and download the form that I need. And this is that COVID participant code of conduct form that Daniel was talking about. That talks about all the things I do. I'll wash my hands, all of that kind of stuff. And then we would check off, hey, I'm an athlete, and sign a date. You talked about them being in Spanish.
I'm not really good at speaking Spanish.
And then that is, so there's a question in the chat I see from Ryan there for a fundraising event. So if you are let's see, for foundation golf outing. So there's a golf outing up here in the north that the foundation board runs. If you were attending that as a guest, as an athlete coming to represent athletes, we have invited you to come. You would fill out the COVID code of conduct form. If you are golfing in that tournament, if you're coming and you've paid your entrance fee and you are golfing, then you're going to fill out the event waiver that's part of that event.
So basically, I think I'm going to be helping out with the whole game at the golf outing.
Okay.
Then what do I fill out?
So you will fill out that participant that COVID-19 code of conduct form.
Okay, and then just the waiver for Change for Champions, right?
Yep.
So Dan, if
the waiver of liability is for Change for Champions.
I don't. Sorry, there's a tornado warning in the area. Excellent. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm supposed to take shelter. Okay, I am sort of on an internal thing.
Yeah, you should take shelter, Dan. If there's any additional questions, I can have this group email me, then we'll forward on to you and get answers to them. So
that would be great.
You should go take shelter.
Yep, I'm going to go inside the center of the office.
All right. Bye,
Thanks,
Dan.
Everybody, have a great night. It was a pleasure being here with you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
See ya.
If
there's anybody else that's also in that viewing area up there in the north that needs to take shelter, please do so now. I think, like I said, if you have any questions on the material that was covered, please email me or email Daniel or Eric, and we'll make sure we get your questions answered.
Okay, I don't have Daniel's email. I don't know what it is.
You have mine though.
Yeah, I got yours. Yes. Yeah, good.
Daniel and Eric, want to close it out?
Yeah. So Welcome back, everyone. We hope everyone was able to learn about the new foams for athlete eligibility. Thanks for the great questions and conversation tonight. Again, you can find more information about the new foams on. We put the link in the chat, and I think Karen will email it out, or I think it was also in the newsletter that got sent out earlier today.
As a reminder, you can find the recording of tonight's meeting on the e-resources page on SOILL.org. And all you need to do, it's on the main screen. All you need to do is scroll down, and there's a button, a blue thing that says e-resources, and then it will direct you to e-resources, and it'll be the medical app form. I think it's listed as the medical app form, right, Daniel or Karen?
Yeah, the video.
The recording.
The recording, yeah. Thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it and are grateful for the time that you all spent learning about the new athlete foams. And now, hopefully, you can take what you learned and educate and inform the fellow athletes.
Keep an eye out on your SOI Athlete Leadership newsletter that was emailed earlier today. Did everyone receive the newsletter today? And then you don't have to get in logistics. You can just.
Yeah. If you didn't receive it, let Aaron or Katie let Katie know.
Yeah.
There will be a link on the Facebook page coming out tomorrow for it too, if you did not see it. On the Special Olympics Illinois Athlete Leadership page.
And speaking of the Facebook page that Katie just mentioned, keep checking the SOILL Athlete Leadership Facebook group page for our next meeting in early October, and the link to the newsletter.
And keep checking your Facebook group page for updates, new leadership trainings and specialized workshops. We have 5 advanced athlete leadership modules monthly till now through January of next year, which is 2022. And we will be back in person training with the Leadership Academy at the Hyatt in Chicago this November 2021.
So if you couldn't tell, the Athlete Leadership Facebook group is your #1 place to get the latest updates from this team here. Remember to stay healthy and safe.
Yes.
We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.
Next time.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, bye. Bye.